My name is Bryan Willis, and I'm a playwright. And about once every couple of years, I have the honor of teaching playwriting, which is kind of a rare thing. But about 10 years ago, I was teaching at Western Washington University. And when I teach, I like to bring in other professional directors and actors and playwrights. And I brought my friend Jerry Manning up to Bellingham, Washington, to lecture to my mostly senior acting and playwriting students. Jerry was a great guy. He had worked at New York Theater Workshop and the Arena Stage in D.C. He worked at the Seattle Rep at the time. He had done a casting for Forrest Gump and 7 major motion pictures. Jerry knew more people on both coasts than anyone I knew. He was in his early 50s at the time, a great guy, a very generous guy. And my students were eager to hear what he had to say about how to make it outside of academia. So one of my students, who was from Olympia, coincidentally, Alex, said, "Jerry Manning, thank you for being here. How do I make it as an actor? How do I make a living doing that?" And Jerry said, "Do you want to be a big star, or do you just want to earn a living as an actor?" And Alex said, "I just want to act. I love to act. I just want to earn a living." So Jerry said, what you need to do is to move to Washington, D.C. You've got the Arena Stage there. You've got the Woolly Mammoth. You have the Kennedy Center. There are more equity professional theaters per capita in the Baltimore, D.C. area than anywhere else in the country. Plus, there are a lot of small colleges. Maybe you could get a job teaching acting at Georgetown or one of those many great schools back there. And here's something you don't think about, other than the Kennedy Center is there, of course, but there's also the State Department, and you could do an industrial. You do that for about 5 years, and in 5 years, you'll be earning a living as an actor. Is that what you want to do? And he said, "No, I want to be a big star." He said, "Okay, but that's a different journey." And so I'm going to talk today about some secrets about earning a living in the arts. And maybe not, if not earning a living, at least ways you can carve out time to pursue your art and different opportunities to get your work out there. I'm not trying to make everyone into a playwright. But that's the secret number. This is titled 5 Secrets to the Arts, but actually it's going to be a few more than that, but it won't be too many more. So the first one, going off of what Jerry said, is kind of identify what it is you want to do. Are you going the commercial route? Are you going, is it going to be commercial work or art? Essentially those two things. You can't control what's going to happen anyway. If you think you do, then I don't know what I'll be doing 6 months from now. I really don't. But that's been true for the last 20 years. And I just build work that keeps coming. And you have to have confidence that's going to happen. I'm born to freelance. There are about 5 people in my hometown, Olympia, who don't have tattoos, who are my age. I'm one of them. But if I did, it would be born to freelance right there. I really love freelancing. So first thing, identify what it is you want. And then you can... then you have something to go for. The big thing that you really need is to be obsessed. That's true. You need to be obsessed. You have to love writing or acting or painting or whatever it is so much that you're just going to do it anyway. Whether you earn a living at it or not, you're just going to do it anyway. Whether if 9 out of 10 people tell you you're nuts, you're just going to do it anyway. It becomes a way of seeing the world. And quite a wonderful way of seeing the world. Not a very secure way of seeing the world, but a way of seeing the world, and you're not going to give that up for anything. If you are obsessed, then nothing I'm going to say will help you at all. And if you aren't obsessed, it won't make any difference either. You can't convince someone to go into the arts. And if you're really in love with it, no one's going to stop you. And yet there are a few secrets, so I'll give you a few more. But being obsessed is really, it's crucial. I like creating exquisite theater in unexpected venues. That's easier to do in my hometown. It's easier to do in a small market. It's easier to do in a smaller town than, say, New York City, to find those sorts of opportunities. And I'll talk about what those opportunities can be. But that's what I like to create. So I'm going to talk more about the local market, about opportunities in your own area, and I think that's happening around the country now. You know, I've read probably 20,000 plays set in New York City. The world, which is great. I'm not sure the world needs another play that I've written set in New York City. The thing about the other places is we have stories to tell as well, and I'm very excited about that. They're probably not going to launch you into winning the Nobel anytime soon, but those are important stories to tell. Again, you're having to make those choices. Be obsessed is secret number 2. Number 3 is learn your craft. Learn your craft. I think we want to be stars before we're really ready. You need to know what you're doing. It really helps. I never wake up in the morning thinking I know everything there is to know about writing plays. It's a very humbling craft. It's an ongoing process. But before you write and before you earn a living at it, you really have to figure out what it is, how to do it. And this was brought home to me when I went to Oberlin College when I was 19. I wanted to make films. I walked into the communication director's office. His name was Christian Koch. I made an appointment with Christian. And I don't know if I can use bad language in this talk or not, so I may have one bad word in this story. Okay. Anyway, I walked into Christian Koch's office and I said, my name's Bryan Willis. I'm 19. I'm new here at Oberlin. I hear you have equipment. I want to make films. How can I do that? He gave me some great advice. He said, you're 19. You don't know squat. He used a different word, but he said, you don't know much. And what you really need is an education. He said, if you go to NYU and study how to use cameras for 2 years and then come back, I'll let you touch my equipment, but not before. What you really need is an education. You need to travel. You need to get some experience. The other stuff is craft. Go get an education. And then he said, another word about filmmaking, you know, it's full of assholes like me, and I suggest you stay out of it. And then he got up and left the room. I thought, wow, he was really right about the asshole part. And he's probably right about the rest of it. And I think he was. So just having that broad base. So sure, you want to write, you want to be an artist, but what is the message you want to convey? And at 19, most of us, certainly I wasn't ready to do that as much as I love theater. I traveled a lot. I spent a couple years in London, and I found out I'm an American writer. The English take a really wonderful little pause between each line. We don't talk that way. We're great at interrupting. I had 4 years in New York to find out I'm a Northwest writer for any number of reasons you can imagine. The irony being that I was able to start to earn a living when I came back to the Northwest. I know a lot of wonderful playwrights in New York, but even the ones who have won the biggest awards, they don't make a living writing plays in New York City. They do it writing teleplays or screenplays. And ironically, I think in a smaller market, you're able to make a little bit more money as a playwright because it just isn't as expensive. So it depends, again, on you're not going to win the Nobel if you're staying here. So what is it that you're pursuing? But number 4 is finding your artistic home. And I'm very appreciative of those years I had to travel, and I know I'm here because I want to be here. But if you think of any artistic movement in painting, well, if we just stick with theater, if we go back to Shakespeare, that group created work together. And that's always been true. That will always be true. So find those like-minded people, find your artistic home, and support each other. Number 5 is it's all material. I quit my day job when I was 32, which puts me way ahead of the game. That means I did balloon delivery in Los Angeles. That means I taught English as a second language for the Garment Workers Union. That means I spent 8 years driving a forklift. That's a lie. I spent 6 years driving a forklift and 2 years gutting fish in Seward, Alaska. It's all material. It was all through the filter of this is going to make me a better writer, getting more experience. I'm earning money to buy time to work on my craft. That helps. Number 6, keep writing. If you're doing balloon delivery, just keep writing. Whatever you're doing, just keep pursuing your art. Whether you're getting paid for it or not. Again, I can't stop you from doing that. You're just going to do that anyway because number 2, you're obsessed. but you have to find a way to just keep working. The secret number 8 is helping each other. This is crucial. And I think as artists, whether you're a playwright or work in pottery or weaving, it's really easy to feel isolated. That's true in a major market. That's true in a little town like Olympia. It's really easy to feel like you're the only person doing what you do. Find those like-minded people. Because our profession is so transitory, as journalism is, probably the artistic director you've made a good contact with is going to be in Baltimore next year. It's just, there was a time here in Seattle, ACT had 8 different artistic directors in 8 years. Seattle Rep had 5 different artistic directors in 8 years. It's very transitory. So who's really going to help you get other productions? Playwrights, other playwrights. Because the truth is there's room for you to be successful and for me to be successful as well. I stay away from people who are competitive, who are snarky. I look out for people who are looking out for me, and I look out for them. Because I know that if your script has 12 characters and it's based on Chaucer, you shouldn't send your script to this theater. John, you need to send your script to this theater. And it's a feather in my cap if I can help you do that. And these are great friendships too. It's a good way to live, but it's also good business. I think that's probably true in all businesses. Number 9, be as creative with your marketing as you are with your work. Be as creative with your marketing as you are with your work. I didn't know how to write a contract after I got out of grad school. We are not taught to have any business sense whatsoever, and it's really shameful. If, in my case, join the Dramatist Guild, learn how to write a contract, learn how to have a car. Every time I step in my 94 Honda, I make money. I've written off $100,000 because it's so cheap to run. But who told me how to keep track of that, how to have a tax write-off? If you're a freelancer, that means you have to pay 100% of your own Social Security. You need to know the tax laws. You need to know not just contracts, but also put energy into marketing. A lot of people in the arts are shy, or they're not very good at putting themselves out there. You got to get over that. You don't have to be a brochure with legs. Actually, you do have to be a brochure with legs. But you have to be as creative with your marketing as you are with your work. Now, what does that really mean? I'll give you an example of my friend Kai Gottberg, who lives in Seattle, a wonderful writer, very good actress. And she decided to create a small theater, and she couldn't get her work done, so she created a theater in her home in Madrona, the Madrona area. Not a big house, but a very nice house, and she created the Womb Theater. The Womb Theater was in her garage. It held 17 people. She would go to Costco and get a case of champagne and make cookies, and you'd go to the Womb Theater for $20. You'd see a one-woman show, and Kai was in the back of the garage running the lights. Oh, it was a good show. It was a really good show. Exquisite theater in an unexpected place. That show ran for 6 months. It got reviewed by everyone. You bought your tickets through brown paper tickets. After 6 months, they got tired of it. 6 months later, they're like, that was pretty good. Let's do that show again. And they did. They did it for another 6 months. At the end of the show, Kai would hit a button. The automatic garage door opener would go up. She'd say, "Thank you very much. Come back." Be as creative with your marketing as you are with your work. Wonderful. There's so many. And here in Olympia, I'm doing a bicycle play. It's going to be set in downtown Olympia. I used the town of Port Gamble as a space. You have a strength. One way to get your work out there is to find a new business that nobody knows about. And you can go to them and say, for example, you did this with Mariah Art School here on the west side. It's tucked away. It's a little hard to find. It's a very good art school. And they have a little stage area in there. I went to Diane. I met Diane, the owner, and I said, "Can I do a show here? And by the end of your show, we'll make sure we'll fill it. We'll have it in all the papers. This is going to be great PR for your space. Will you give me your space?" Well, she's a good businesswoman, and she thought that was a good idea, and it was a good idea. I got a free space. She got free advertising. Be as creative with your marketing as you are with your work. I'm going to use one more example. I had an actor who no one liked working with him much, and so he came to me and said, "No one likes working with me much. Can you write a play for me?" He wanted me to write. He was a very good actor. He's since left the business, but because no one likes working with him much, and he wanted me to write a one-man Edgar Allan Poe show. Well, I'm an old English major. I love Edgar Allan Poe, so I said yes, I would, and I wanted to work with him. And I really liked this guy, and I thought we could work together, and we did. So I spent 4 years studying Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know what happens to us after we die, but if I get to the afterlife and I meet Edgar Allan Poe, I want to say, I did my best, Edgar Allan Poe. I don't want Edgar Allan Poe to be pissed off at me under any circumstances. So I did my best. And then what? Now I have this script. I'd been writing 17 years before I wrote a one-man show, because a one-man show is a really difficult beast. And if any of you have ever seen a bad one-woman or one-woman show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a tough one. And I like to keep challenging myself with different formats. So that was one way to do that. And with this particular show, I was living in McClary, Washington at the time, population 1,200, home of the second largest door factory west of the Mississippi. What am I going to do with my Edgar Allan Poe show here in Olympia or in McClary, Washington? I'm going to go to the Friends of the McClary Library. And my friend Linda and her husband Jarvis, her husband Jim Jarvis, and I'm going to say, will you give me $500 to write this play? And for those $500, I'm going to spend a day in the McClary grade school. I'm going to do poetry and writing workshops. We're going to have the winners will be printed and published in the Montesano Vedette. I created my Poe piece was set in 1849. It was like an old-time salon in which you'd have a main speaker, and then you'd have other guests. You'd have local guest people speaking as well. Well, those local people were going to be from Olympia, Seattle. They're going to be kids from McClary. That helped build my audience. And the first performance, the money was dedicated to the Friends of McClary Library. They got their $500 back. We did that in the old McClary Hotel, and Penny was just thrilled to have so many people in her space for 3 weeks at the old McClary Hotel. So this play is happening 300 yards from a door factory. We filled it for 3 weeks, though. Only 60 seats, but we filled it for 3 weeks. What happened then? Someone from the Inquiring Minds, actually Cheryl Haywood, who's a local librarian here, now head of Timberland Regional Library, which is over 30 libraries, she said, that's a good play. That needs to be in the Inquiring Minds. Here in Washington, we have it used to be called the Inquiring Minds series. And it would take a play like that, and it could travel around the state. That was great. She helped me do that. That show is still running. But by the time we finished in McClary, I had 40 bookings for that show, and paying pretty well. And suddenly this actor that everybody hates, he's earning a living doing this. It's great. And I'm making the royalties. I'm very, very proud of this show. I'm doing exquisite work in an unexpected place. One woman who sees that show has a scholarship in England with Sophie's Silver Lining Fund. She has the first scholarship recipient at the Guildhall in England, and she wants to write a one-woman show based on Sophie Large, a young woman, poet and director who died at the age of 19. They tried to hire an English playwright, and he wanted too much money, so I was number 2. I fell in love with the material, and that was a really nice commission, because the woman had seen the Poe show in McClary, Washington. The show went to Edinburgh. People from the BBC saw it. The show went to the BBC. I was paid to adapt it for BBC Radio. I got a screenplay commission out of that because I did a show in McClary, Washington, home of the second largest door factory west of the Mississippi. You never know where it's going to lead. You just do your best work, and you try to get the right people in to see the show. I loved that show because I had people who were veteran theater goers, and I had people who had never graced a stage ever, who'd never been in there. It was very gratifying. and inexpensive. It's a big thing for me. I like having theater that's either free or very inexpensive. Boy, number 8 lasted a long time. We'll go faster here. Oops. That wasn't even number 8. I'm going to go back to number 7. Number 7 is learn everything you can about your craft. In my case, that means learning about lights, learning about sound. I was Mrs. Claus as a Cub Scout. That was the height of my acting career, but I studied acting later. Producing, directing, everything I could learn about theater, because now I'm more employable. Now I can run lights and run sound. And now I know what it takes to stage manage a show. I know what a horrible, thankless job that is. And I always say thank you to my stage manager. They're like the bass player of a theater. No one ever notices them or says thank you, and without them you're dead. And often a stage manager is the one who's going to give you great notes if you ask her, and she's going to be running a theater before you know it. Always be nice to your stage manager and be appreciative of what other people do. And now look at Orson Welles and his radio work and how that made him a much better screenwriter for Citizen Kane. These other things that you learn affect what you do. So learn everything you can about your craft. It's very important to be appreciative of what other people do. I balance out one commission with one, what we call a spec script, a script that's purely speculative. If you're lucky enough to get to a point where you're actually earning a living in the arts, it can be a real trap to just do that and to take work that pays the most. I think that's a real mistake, because a lot of times the pieces that do the best you did for free in the beginning, or you did for $500. It's really best just to write what you really want to write, not to try to anticipate the market, but write what's really important to you. If you're going to anticipate what everyone else wants, the market's probably going to change by the time you actually get it produced, and you're not really writing from the heart anyway. There are easier ways to make money, like balloon delivery or overhead welding or something. So if you're going to be writing, at least write what you want to write, and don't be so concerned about I've got to make money on it, because I think especially in our culture we're good capitalists. We want to show, that's part of how we show success, that we've made money on something, and that is so rarely connected with the importance of the project. Overlap projects. Theaters are always burning down. They are going belly up. Here in Washington, I could name 10 theaters that have closed in the last 5 years. If your project is depending on that one play, you could be dead in the water. It's always good to overlap projects. And they tend to feed one another. Get your work out there. That's secret we're on 13, by the way. Get your work out there. You do have to be a brochure with legs. I volunteer for this organization called the Northwest Playwrights Alliance. We do a reading every month. We do a tour to England. It's volunteer, and it's a lot of work, but I get so much work from that. Probably about half my jobs come from that, because once a month I'd be able to send out a notice to 6,000 of my colleagues around the country saying, I'm here, I haven't gone away, I'm still working, I'm tied to Seattle Repertory Theatre, a major institution. It's really important, because people forget. People forget, and if you found your artistic home in about 3 years, if you haven't done anything, that's it. Your audience is either moved, or the people you work with have moved. It is amazing how quickly that happens. I've discovered that the hard way in several markets. Even if you stay in one market, you need to get your face out there, get your name out there, get your work out there. It's really important to do that. The last one is to have a life. It's pretty important. I think it's really important to do something that has nothing to do with theater or your art form. It's important for a lot of reasons. As much as I love to write, oftentimes if I work on drafts, if I work on a play and it's draft number 7 or 8 or 9, I don't always know if it's any good or not. I like the process, but I don't always know if the play is any good until I hear actors read it, until I get to see it, until I get to see it in front of an audience that doesn't include Margot and my mom? It's hard to know, as much as I love that process. But if I plant a tree or build a bookcase or do something concrete, that's really great. Teaching can really do that too. You rarely leave the classroom thinking, you know if you nailed it or not when you teach. It's nice to have something that's not related to what you do, that's just fun. It's really, really important. Here's just a little augmentation, number 15. You have to take care of yourself. If you get sick, that's bad news. You've really got to take good care of yourself. And you have to live simply and within your means. Having that methamphetamine habit is not a good thing. You have a $400 a week Vicodin habit, don't do that. You're not going to be an artist. Not on your own. It's just you've got to take care of yourself, and you have to live within your means. If you're lucky enough to find those like-minded people, hang on to them, don't take them for granted, because that's what life's about, really, and that's what a lot of writing is about, and I wish you good luck with your work, break a leg, mega breakage. Thank you very much.